So let me let you in on a little secret that might be kind of hard to hear. Your short-term rental isn't worth what you think it is. And if you're wondering what I mean by that, stick around and I'm going to explain in this video everything you need to know about pricing your short-term rental in this economy so that you'll stay fully booked. Hey everybody, welcome back to Secrets to Short-Term Rental Success. My name is L'Oreal Keaton, and today I've got a big video for you all about pricing strategy in this current economy. There has been a lot of debate by people a lot smarter than me about, are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? There's tons of people you can follow to talk more about what's happening with the economy. But as far as it goes with short-term rentals, the fact is that inflation has been higher in this country than it has been in decades, and that has really started to wear on the American people. And it's clear that the traveling that was happening in 2021 and 22, where there was a lot of revenge travel from COVID, people had money that they were given from the stimulus, they were eager to spend it, that has cooled off. And prices for short-term rentals have changed in a lot of markets. And what I want to talk about today is how you can adapt to what's happening in the current climate so that you don't get left behind when it comes to your listing. It's really important that you modify your pricing strategies to meet the market, because if you don't, you're going to be left behind. So when I told you all at the start of this video that your short-term rental isn't worth what you think it is, what I mean by that is something that a lot of hosts don't realize. I hear it all the time. I hear it from owners. I hear it from other hosts. They're talking about prices from a year ago or a couple of years ago and saying, I've added all these amazing things to my property. It is worth X amount per night, fill in the blank there. The problem is that the market doesn't care what you think your house is worth. And that's kind of hard to hear, but it's true. The market doesn't care. And the reality is that whether you are selling a house or you're renting it out as a short-term rental or even a long-term lease, the market dictates what your price is going to be. Let me say that again, because I think sometimes people really need to hear it. The market sets your price. Your house is only worth what people are willing to pay for it. And that goes whether it is for sales or it's for a short-term rental. And as we've been kind of talking about already, the markets have changed. The economy has changed and there is a lot less money floating around that people are willing to spend. Everything has gotten more expensive in the last couple of years. And so there is a lot less money for people to be spending on things like vacations. And I find that in our market, we have people that are bargain shopping. They're definitely looking to still travel, but they don't want to spend as much as they did before. Overpriced homes are definitely suffering at this point, and you're not in the same market that you were a couple of years ago where you had, a crazy high nightly rate, but everybody was trying to travel and no one cared and they paid whatever, regardless of whether the house was really worth it or not. Now, even some of the best hosts are competing to get people to book their listings even at lower prices. So I want to talk some more about pricing strategy, what adaptations we've made for our business, and how you can do the same so that you can be more successful as a short-term rental host. So when it comes to a pricing strategy, there is so much to unpack. I will do multiple videos about pricing. In this one, I really want to kind of get you thinking about where the economy may be, what's been going on in your market, and how you can adapt to capture more travelers and make sure that people are booking your place, even if it's at a lower rate than you were getting the last couple of years. So I'm going to be giving you just a couple of different tips on things that you can do to really maximize your pricing strategy to get as many travelers as possible. The first part about this is it's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow. I'm going to be honest. It was very easy a couple of years ago to get travelers into your places at really high rates. And a lot of investors jumped into the short-term rental market thinking they were going to make crazy cash flow. And for a little bit they did. And now things have cooled off and people are struggling and wondering what it means for short-term rentals. The good news is that people are still traveling. And especially if you're in markets where people like to drive, sometimes airline travel and poorer economies can be a little bit tougher, but a lot of places in this country people drive to, national parks and things like that, tend to be pretty steady for short-term rentals and just vacationing in general. But you want to be thinking about the traveler these days and how expensive even their groceries and gas are. And so they are looking for lower priced homes to rent. That's, I think, true not only for this slow season, which this past winter, it is clear that there was a lot of lower rates than normal in most markets. And now as we head into spring and summer, which should traditionally be a busy season, I am thinking that there's going to be still more competition. I think lower priced homes that are competitive are going to do better than some of the ones that are sticking to these higher prices that they got a couple of years ago. I'm not saying they won't book, but I think that it may take more than it did before. And most likely the hosts that are kind of with the times and paying attention to what the markets are doing are going to be the ones that get the most travelers. So how do you even determine what your nightly rate should be for the market? There's a couple of different ways that you can do this, and I'm going to talk to you a lot about the market research that you can do right on the Airbnb platform to kind of help you determine what your nightly rate should be. But when you first do a listing, Airbnb is going to give you a suggested price when you create it. I pretty much ignore this, honestly. Your nightly rate in probably every market is going to vary a lot seasonally. It'll be different on weekends versus middle of the week, all kinds of things. And so I kind of take that price with a grain of salt. I often usually take their suggested prices when you're in there changing your prices with a grain of salt as well. But it is helpful to kind of get an idea of what Airbnb is suggesting that your listing is worth. Although I do find that traditionally they are underpricing listings versus what the market is, but it's a great kind of like jumping off point. So when you're in your calendar, if you are seeing that you're not getting bookings, then I would pick some dates where you think that, it should be booked, like say start with like a weekend, and see what Airbnb is giving you as a suggestion. And that's always really helpful. And then there are the other options that we're going to talk about in this video, which is how you can use market research, which Airbnb really helps you do to figure out your pricing. But as a just general jumping off point, do some research. See what Airbnb is suggesting, but you're really going to set your prices based on the market and all the different ways that you can figure out what everybody around you in your neighborhood is charging as a short-term rental. And that's going to kind of dictate based on how similar you are to them, what you should charge as well. So let's talk a little bit about how you can do some market research, particularly with Airbnb. Again, they have some neat features that make this really easy to do. And when I'm talking about market research, I'm talking about you checking out your competition and seeing where you fit with your prices compared to other similar listings in your market. Now, remember what I said, the market is going to dictate your prices. No matter what you think they should be, people are only going to pay what they think your listing is worth. And if the market has dropped some as far as what prices people are paying, then you need to also get into that mix and meet that demand. If you stay too high, you're not only not going to get booked, but the longer that you stay with less occupancy, less interest because people aren't clicking on your listing to even look at it because it's too high priced, the less bookings that you get overall, you're going to fall down in search. And I think this is something that many hosts and property managers don't pay enough attention to. Occupancy is really, really important when it comes to the Airbnb algorithm. You need people to be booking your place. That pushes you up in search. And so sometimes you have to trade what you want as far as the long-term goals of your business. So for example, that might mean that you're going to take a lower nightly rate than you want to, and maybe it's way lower than you're comfortable with, but it gets you bookings and it gets you guests and it gets you reviews. And if you don't do that and you stick to your price and you sit there and stay unoccupied for enough time, you start losing your ranking and it can happen very quickly. So don't let your competition overshadow you and take your place in search because you're stuck on a price that maybe the market isn't willing to meet. So when it comes to doing market research, as I said, Airbnb makes this really, really simple. It's an amazing feature that they've come up with in the last year or so, I think. And it is that it will show you similar listings to yours and see what they're charging. This is amazing. This is great for market research and how you can really look at your competition, see whether you're in the right price point based on other similar listings or whether you're too underpriced or too overpriced. And so if you don't know how to do this, I'm going to show you real quick. You just go into your calendar and then you click on any dates in your calendar. So open up your calendar, click a date, and what you're going to see is it's going to bring up an option to change the price. And also then in the lower left corner, it's going to say compare similar listings, and it's going to show you a price range of those similar listings. Now, this means that Airbnb has taken a look at your listing and pulled ones in your area that they think are similar to yours. So what that means is even if you don't think they're a direct competition, Airbnb does. So it means that when a traveler is looking for these specific dates, if they don't book your house, they're going to see these other listings that Airbnb is showing you. That's what's going to come up in the search. So you want to pay attention to these. And so when the map comes up, the first thing you're going to see is booked listings, which is also amazing information. So it will tell you the range of houses or apartments or whatever it is, listings listings that are similar to yours that are already booked. And it will give you a price range of which night, like what the nightly rate was that those homes were booked at. Super helpful information because once again, you can look at your nightly rate and see whether it even falls in line with stuff that has been already booked. If it's too high, that already tells you something. And if it's too low, you might be able to raise your prices. So that's pretty interesting information. It tells you that right away. It shows you that on the map. If you click unbooked listings, it brings up another map, which shows you all of your competition that is not yet booked for the dates that you're looking at. And it tells you what they're charging per night. So I tend to go in here and look at those homes, see what they're charging, see how similar they are to me, check out things like, not just their prices, but look at their cleaning fee, like see what their total cost is compared to yours. And that's something that you need to look at. It's not just nightly rate. If you have a ton of fees added on that makes your property more expensive than somebody else's, that is direct competition, that might be affecting you as well. So use this. This is super great for doing market research. Airbnb makes it so easy for you to look at your competition, really see what they're doing, see what the market says about your property, and price it accordingly so that you can get booked. And again, once you get booked, that occupancy rate really helps you in search. So stick with this. Be looking at, different calendar dates. Keep in mind the lead time of how far out the average is that people are booking. And if you're within that window of when people are typically booking, you want to look at those calendar dates in particular and see who's been booked at what price range and then who is not booked and why, because it'll tell you whether the unbooked listings are going a lot lower than yours or a lot higher. And you can kind of figure out, where you should price your home so that you have the best chance of capturing those travelers for those dates. So another thing that's really important when it comes to your pricing strategy is how your prices also affect your reviews. And I think now, especially with where things have been lately for the economy and just kind of the short-term rental market in general, I think it's really important that people look at that value section in the reviews and pay attention to it, because more and more people are feeling like they need to get their money's worth for something. As everybody kind of knows, with inflation, it's been really expensive to do things and to buy groceries and all that kind of stuff. And Airbnb in particular, when it comes to reviews, ask all of your guests to rate your home on value. And that matters. So if you are way too overpriced, you might get lucky and get a booking. But then if you get a low review for value, and I've seen this more and more in the last year or so, where people book, they say they have a great time. And then all of a sudden you get like a 4-star for value or a 3-star for value when everything else was a 5. And that is a little indicative, I think, of just where things are right now as far as traveling and the economy and that kind of stuff. But it is something that you should pay attention to, because your reviews really matter for your business. And just keep in mind that value is something that your travelers and guests are going to be rating your listing on. And if it has been too high and they feel like they didn't really get their money's worth, that it was overpriced, it's going to reflect in your reviews. And it's another great reason to really be looking at your market, looking at your competition, and pricing yourself accordingly so that when guests come to your place, they feel like they got a great deal. They had an amazing experience. You delivered an awesome time to them and you were a great host, and they're going to give you a great review to reflect that. So when it comes to your pricing strategy, really kind of look at your business model, what you need your property to do as far as performance. And if you're a property manager or co-host, what do your owners need it to do? Because everybody's strategy is going to be a little bit different. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is that the greater occupancy you have, the better you're going to do on the Airbnb platform in particular. So you want to be able to price your listing in such a way that you can maximize occupancy, because that is what's going to ultimately make you the most money. And a lot of times what people don't realize is that once a night has gone by, if your night goes unbooked, you can't get that back for the year. There is no making up the lost revenue for nights that go unbooked. And a lot of times what I find is that if you've priced appropriately for the market and you can fill your calendar, even if you're at a lower nightly rate than you want it to be, most of the time your property is still going to perform quite well. And in fact, this year for 2023, all of our properties outperformed the numbers they did in 22, even though we were often doing a lower nightly rate, particularly towards the end of 23. We had some lower rates than I would have liked, but we were able to fill our calendars. And so our properties still ultimately made more money than they did the year before, when we may have had some higher nightly rates, but not as much occupancy. So keep that in mind and remember that occupancy is everything as far as staying staying high up in search. And you want to make sure that that is something that you are considering when it comes to pricing. So when it comes to pricing, there is so much more to talk about and so many strategies that will help you to be successful as a short-term rental host. And we're going to be bringing you a lot more videos when it comes to pricing and all the different ways that you need to look at pricing so that you can maximize your short-term rental to be as successful as possible. But in the meantime, for this video, I really wanted you just to be thinking about the market and really kind of look at your listings critically and see whether you have them priced correctly. It can be really tough to face the realities of the market and realize that what you think your house is worth may not be the case anymore and that you have to adjust your pricing accordingly for your listing. But I guarantee that if you are paying attention to the market and you are delivering a great guest experience and a clean and inviting property that people are happy to go to, your property is going to do quite well. But it can be a bit of a gut check to have to realize that what you wanted to charge for your nightly rate isn't what the market can bear. But I promise you that if you pay attention and you do your market research, the market will tell you where your house needs to be priced. And it isn't the same today that it will be tomorrow or 6 months from now. It is something that you constantly need to be looking at. I personally check prices on an almost daily basis for all of our listings, and you need to do the same. And if that's not something that you can do, we're going to do some future videos about some tools that can help you with your pricing strategy. But just keep in mind, pay attention to the market. It will tell you where your listing needs to be priced so that you can be competitive and create a lot of occupancy for your listing so that you have a full calendar and you are making some really good money. Thank you all so much for being here. Please leave us a comment below. Let us know if you learned anything from this video or things that you would like to see on this channel. We are so grateful for all of your support and thank you for being here. We're going to see you next time.